Hello, good afternoon. So, I'm going to talk about the market. We could speak about the market on sovereign cloud for hours, but we are going to focus on three main topics. What is the demand? Who is demanding for sovereign cloud and for which purpose? The second is how the regulation is going on, what's new, and what is missing. And third, with this demand and the framework of regulation, how the solution provider operates in Europe. Okay, so these are the three main topics we are going to visit in this session. As Rajiv said at the introduction, we are talking about sovereign cloud, but we need to recognize that there is still no standard, worldwide or European-based standard to define a sovereign cloud is A, B, C, D, and E. So it creates a lot of confusion. And we see every single week announcement of different providers who say, I'm the best. No, I'm the best. No, it's me. I'm sovereign. Oh, I'm cloud for sovereignty. Sometimes you see also playing with the words to say, I will use a different way of announcing. And it creates a lot of confusion. So what is critical is to look at what's in. What are the requirements and why the market is demanding for better protection, better development of their innovation in an open manner, under control. So let's look at the drivers. The number one driver that we see in many discussions is regulation and compliancy. And an interesting survey done by Accenture shows that 84% of the organization in Europe does recognize that regulation will impose sovereign cloud for a part of their critical data and confidential data. So everybody is prepared that the space for freedom will be under control for some of the data which are critical for the business, critical for the public organizations, critical for defense and government. The number two criteria is the fast adoption of the cloud. In fact, for many, many years, public cloud has been seen as a nice to have somewhere, and it has been moved to a must have for critical business. And moving to this core activity on public cloud, the dynamic to do it has been done for some of these organizations in a way where the confidentiality of the data has not been always well protected. And we did at VMware with IDC a survey at the beginning of the year asking to 600 CXO in EMEA, do you have today confidential data in public cloud? 63% say yes, we have confidential data. So there is a burning platform somewhere because exposure is concrete. The third driver is the risks. And so far we have seen the cloud from the past as a magic solution, which always works, which is protected for any type of risk. And since a couple of months, 2 years, with Ukraine, with all of these attacks, we have seen emerging new risks. And having all of the critical data somewhere where we could have some geopolitical tension, we could have some decision from one government to another to say we stop this kind of service, it creates a very significant dependency. And last but not least, it's not static. The complexity every year is going up because of the data explosion. It's difficult to have an accurate percentage of where we are in public cloud, but I've seen between 50 and 80%, but I take 50% as a minimum that we can accept. 50% of all of the worldwide data are today in public cloud. Minimum 50%. And it's growing very fast. So this dependency with public cloud is for all of our new core business, core activity. So there is a burning platform, there is a pressure of the organization vis-à-vis the compliancy, and we need to go fast because we have more to do in the coming months and years. So going fast, we have done an interesting analysis, it's not from VMware, it's from Omdia, from June 23, to ask, where are you in deploying a sovereign cloud in different organizations in EMEA? And what we have seen is that when you sum up those who consider an existing first of a kind of implementation for a specific project, plus those who are doing in 23 and 24 an investment somewhere in the sovereign cloud, the total is 70%. 70% considers that they will have at least a project, an application running on sovereign cloud. So the demand is now. And in terms of industry sectors, it's interesting to see that it's spread over all of the industry sectors. Everybody has a consideration for sovereign cloud. And why manufacturing and professional services are bigger than public sectors is because of the cloud adoption was faster. So the burning platform and the existence of risk that they have today required an immediate action. Public sector, and we'll have great demonstration after with government of Monaco and Monaco Cloud and some other testimonial, the movement is started and it's becoming highly critical. So this percentage does not mean that it's less critical for some industry. It's just a question of how the adoption has been fast in some industry sectors, and from that, who need to get an immediate solution. But bottom line, everybody, every single industry has a consideration for sovereign cloud. Okay? So, having this overview of the market and the demand of what it is in terms of expectations, let's spend a little bit of time now on the regulation, and I will focus from EMEA much more in European Commission, which is a key driver for the regulation on digital. We have seen in the past, GDPR was a great work done by EU, and it has been spread in different countries. And we can anticipate that for the cloud, what's going on in terms of development of new framework, new regulation, new compliancy requirement from Europe will expand in different geography. So this is the assumption. And as a starting point, we need to recognize that Europe is very, very strong in terms of investing a lot of energy to increase the level of protection via regulation. And one of the drivers, for those who are not familiar, is Ambition 2030, which is named Digital Ambition, that Europe has developed, and Thierry Breton and the European Commission has developed a lot of content. You can go to their website. It's very well done, well documented. And one of the metrics out of many is to move in Europe every single enterprise at a level of 75% of the total enterprise using cloud by 2030, compared to the baseline of 41% in 2021. So this is a journey with an objective to reach 75% of enterprise in Europe will use public cloud by 2030. And the overall framework they have developed, named 2030 Digital Decade, it's a very comprehensive framework which considers the different layers of concerns and the different needs for developing content, both in terms of politics, democracy, but rules and regulation, but also industry and synergy to build operational solutions on the network, the cloud, the edge, all of the fundamental pieces which are relative to the data and which will lead to this overall objective of transforming Europe in a data-driven e-economy. So a lot of documentation exists on this framework, but it's important to take that as an overall structuring framework to enable the different pieces of actions to reconsider all of that in a more comprehensive story. Because I have a lot of discussion with partners and clients who say, oh, we are lost. A lot of regulation is coming up. What it is? Is it the one which replaces everything which has been done? And the naming are not always very easy to understand. So we have a key element which is a starting point, is the data. All of these regulations that we are going to display in a few minutes are clearly how we protect the data. And the data, the number one step is what level of confidentiality do we have on my different group of data. As we speak today, there is no one single standard to classify the data. But we did a lot of analysis in Europe, in the EMEA and elsewhere, and we have seen a convergence on a model which is between 3 and 4 layers, and the difference between 3 and 4, sometimes some countries or some specific organizations are bundling 2 steps of the model at 4 layers to have a 3 layers type of classification, but it's very, very similar. So it's interesting to see that without a formal standard, the industry, with an S, have been converging on a model of classification which developed the requirement associated to each of these levels. And this is where we can have a starting of a real discussion. We are not talking about word for word, the word sovereign cloud for being sovereign cloud somewhere. No, we talk about very concrete requirements. And Rajiv has been very clear on the principle. Where the data is located, but where the metadata are located, where the copy and archive of my data are located. So data residency is key. Who operate my data? But not only day to day, but in case of escalation, in case of upgrade, patch, who is going to touch my data at some point? Operations. How I do protect? Can I keep my keys and let the encrypted data at public cloud provider level? Yes or no? Data privacy, how the confidentiality and the potential risk to see other leakage of my data and access to my uncontrolled access is critical or not for my data. Immunity for other and foreign regulation is key for some confidential and top secret data. It's clear that when you look at an organization like NATO, the most critical data can't be exposed to any external access and any external jurisdiction which is not in the group. So, and all of the compliancy, how this group of data is or not relying on a particular set of data, because we are talking about health data versus a finance environment with DORA, etc. So the compliancy is key for the different data. And if you combine the two, the level of risk associated to the level of requirement, you have a starting point of a plan, because you know if you have 3 groups, 2 groups, 4 groups for a particular entity, and what are the different requirements associated to that. In terms of regulation, as I've said, the landscape is large to protect this group of data, and I've tried to simplify, taking 3 main pillars: security, interoperability, portability, and privacy. And when you look at, on the infrastructure side, we see emerging a series of evolution on the regulation for security. Interesting, we see more and more on interoperability and portability. So there is a consideration for portability and interoperability which is growing very fast. And we see also some local segment cloud and C5 regulation which are also reference for building the new version of European base like EUCS. But there is also a series of additional consideration of regulation for the services and the applications. And when you complete all of that, you can say, wow, great, it's done. It's not. If you look in detail, we still have some domain of interest which could be covered, but there is, between security and privacy, an area I will call immunity. And immunity, unfortunately, is still open. We don't have a shield. We don't have a magic protection act to say, Cloud Act, stop, we have a boundary. It does not exist. So, and this is a major point. I invite you, when you read all of this announcement every day, that XYZ provider from US is saying, have a sovereign cloud solution, how this particular point is totally 100% covered. It's not. A lot of investment, a lot of work is done, yes, but there is still a gap. And as EMEA organization, those who want to operate have a lot of protection, but not the full scope of protection. So that's a snapshot on where we are, and I will be pleased next year to do an update and to see how much this coverage of regulation is continuing to complete the picture. So Europe is not investing only on regulation. Europe is also investing in different dynamics to create a good synergy and a good leverage of how we can accelerate this 2030 objective, how we can accelerate this data-driven e-economy. We have all seen the huge amount of investment in the recovery fund. The good news is billions of investment are supported by Europe to do the digital transformation of different sectors, different industry, different countries. We just need to recognize that the vast majority is for services and application, not for infrastructure. So we have a focus on digital transformation, which is very much for the end-user services. The public administration transformation, the government transformation, the bank, etc. We have a lot of investment, but not on infrastructure. On the infrastructure side, you have seen European Alliance for Industrial Data, Edge and Cloud. Great, but it's not an infrastructure investment. It's not aiming to become an infrastructure in terms of deployment and implementation. It's a facilitator for synergy between the different industries. So they can also be used as a consultant with expertise, but it's not aiming to become an infrastructure. So GAIA-X, for some who have seen GAIA-X over the last 2 years, was expected to be an infrastructure. It has never been targeted as an infrastructure. It's a great set of activities, research for architecture design, for data space development, and it's critical for the data-driven economy, but once again, it's not an infrastructure. So, a lot of activity, we have a high demand in Europe, we have a lot of regulation, but the infrastructure domain is still a domain which is not supported directly in terms of direct investment. So, Europe recognizes that it's a risk. And for those who have time to read at the September, the last month before, report of the European Commission, the official, it's open, public, you can go to the European Commission website, 2030 report, and you will see that they are very strong now pushing for sovereign cloud for state members, for new investment, for innovation, for AI. Sovereign cloud, the word sovereign cloud is clearly stated as a must-have for all of the critical transformation of this economy, which is critical for the future of Europe and for the EMEA in general. Okay? So, bottom line on this section, regulation is progressing, digital transformation is clearly is accelerating, but we need to complement all of this activity with an architectural and strategic vision from organization. Because regulation alone is not going to be a magic message to say, it's done, we have a shield, we are fully protected. So we need to combine the strategy, the architecture, and the way the end solution is becoming sovereign. So let's look now for the last few minutes about the market in terms of who is operating in Europe. And we have a dominant position of hyperscalers. And in terms of making the classification easily, we can take a very basic but factual statement. In Europe, you have two types of cloud providers. You have the native providers and the non-native providers. So I think this classification is based on fact. A lot of providers in EMEA have been operating because they are native since years, and we see emerging more and more the sovereign cloud offering from the non-native. Market share, you know probably Synergy Research. Over the last 5 years, all of the European, the dotted line in blue, have lost 10 points in 5 years of market share. The three hyperscalers are growing and growing and growing. Billions of investment is going on. So this is a serious concern that we have seen now government raising since beginning of this year as a significant risk for the future. And all of this initiative from UK government, European Commission, French government, Germany, etc., are real investigation, which is now, are we at risk? Yes. We are in terms of geopolitics, in terms of future of our digital assets. with such a level of dependency which creates a significant risk. So a lot of actions are going on today in terms of investigation in Europe. But we have good news on the European provider, the native. And what we are seeing, when you look at the curve that I was showing, but with a specific focus on the last part of the curve, the last 3 quarters. If I do a zoom, for those who are not, you see the exact number of this synergy group. First time after 5 years that it starts to increase a little bit, but there is a starting of an increase. First time after 5 years of permanent reduction of the market share. And this is the starting point when we have been together in Europe promoting European native sovereign cloud. And how we can explain this change of the curve? There is 2 paths. One is the existing mass market on-demand solutions that some of you have provided since years are continuing to grow. So there is a growing demand for on-demand. The limit on this vertical axis is the average revenue per client per year, RPAC, so how much a single client is delivering to the cloud service provider per year. The revenue maximum we see on this model is around 1 million per year for the cloud service provider vis-à-vis a single end client. And over the last 4 quarters, what we have seen is a brand new type of project. I call extra large projects, up to 40 million a year. So we see a significant change of paradigm, an order of magnitude which is totally different because you have credibility to host critical assets and projects. And this is completely new. And this is something that we can leverage with sovereign cloud. And this is, for me, a gate opener for changing all of the dynamic of your on-prem player. You do it for sure with IaaS, but more and more PaaS solutions, and we'll have more content later on in the afternoon, and also better connecting with a complete ecosystem, system integrator MSP, and ISV solutions. With that, I will stop to be on time, and we'll have maybe a few questions at the end. Thank you.